Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of ASEC Conversations. Today, our special guest is President and CEO of the Phoenix Suns, Mr. Jason Rowley. At this time, I'll turn it over to our host, Ashley Hammett. Ashley?
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in southern Arizona on a cattle ranch that's been in my family since about the 1940s. So an interesting way to grow up and quite a bit different than where I'm at right now.
And did you play sports as a child?
I did some soccer and wrestling in my very young youth, and then high school I played football and wrestled as well, and then a little bit of time playing rugby and some boxing in college.
You consider your decision to join the United States Navy as one of the proudest and most formative moments in your life. Why is this?
So it wasn't as much the decision; it was the outcome of it and the experience of it. Where I came from, having that exposure to such a wide range of diverse individuals, which is what I really view the military as, the biggest melting pot there is, because you get people from all over the country, from all different backgrounds, who ultimately have to learn how to work together and accomplish a shared mission and goal. And so having served and spent that time and learning those skills and all the great relationships you build, it was just something that I never regretted doing, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Can you tell us about your role as an intelligence analyst during your time in the Navy?
Sure. So I was very fortunate that I worked for a four-star admiral who was in charge of the Third Fleet in the Pacific, and my job essentially was to take, and I had to go through and get a top secret clearance and all those things. But my job was to take raw intelligence data that came in and boil it down to daily briefings that we would provide to the admiral and his staff. And so what was great about that from an experience standpoint is, even at a pretty young age, I had the ability to daily brief and be prepared for somebody who operated at that level, and kind of the level of detail you needed to have and professionalism was really a great learning experience for me, and I think helped me out, like when I got to law school and things like that.
Speaking of law school, did you always plan to attend at some point, even graduating with your bachelor's degree and joining the Navy?
I did. I had kind of a relatively simple path that I went to college, wanted to go into the military, did that, and then my plan was to go to law school after that, which I managed to follow that path. So my plan, even back in my college days, was to attend law school.
When did you know you wanted to pursue a career in sports?
So the interesting thing about that, and I get that question a lot, because there's a lot of people who, they dream of working for whether it be a professional sports team or a college program or the NCAA, whatever it is. I actually never specifically targeted sports as an industry that I told myself that's where I want to work and I won't settle for anything less. My professional goals instead had always been to go to law school, learn that trade, but eventually run a company, whether it be somebody else's company or a public company or my own company. It wasn't as much about the industry. It just so happens that the industry that I ended up, for a few reasons, landing in, and based on some decisions I made, is how I ended up here. But I never specifically targeted sports. Now, that being said, having now spent 13, 14 years in a professional sports team, I wouldn't have it any other way.
This is your 7th season as president and CEO of the Suns, and your 12th season with the team overall. What is your best memory thus far?
Boy, there has been a lot of them. I would tell you that just at least more recently, within the last year and a half, when we gained public approval to have our arena remodeled, because it is a publicly owned company, or it is a publicly owned facility that we manage for the city of Phoenix. But getting the public approval to have this renovation happen, a $230 million renovation that we're in the middle of right now, that was when that approval came down and we got the vote from the city council. That was was a pretty big moment for us as an organization and for me professionally, because it was a big ticket item for us and for the community. So it was great to have that come to fruition.
At first, there were some doubts about the NBA operating in a bubble during the pandemic. How would you rate its success?
I would rate it, if we're saying rating 1 to 10, I'd give it a 10 plus. And the reason I say that is that we were, as a league, able to pull that together relatively quickly and salvage our season, still crown a champion, although, I'm unfortunate that it's the Lakers, considering I've worked with the Suns. But be that as it may, the fact that we were able to work that, have it come together, do it without having a single positive COVID test during the bubble, and then at the same time for us personally as a team to go 8-0 in the bubble and have the best record in the bubble was a terrific moment for the organization and the community. So I think the league did a spectacular job pulling that off, and to some degree can even be an example for other companies and other industries about how you can maybe reopen things and get back to some level of normalcy.
What are your thoughts on COVID-19 as it relates to possible team decisions being made in the future?
It is driving pretty much every decision at both the team level and the league level. It's, if you think about the impact of COVID-19 on every industry, every community across the country and really across the world, but you think about our business model, which is essentially to have 18,000 or so people packed into close proximity with each other. Our industry definitely disproportionately impacted compared to a lot of other ones. And so we know that we need to figure out a way to make people feel safe to come back into our arenas and stadiums. It's an industry-wide effort, and you're already seeing us kind of chip away at it, but our decision making is literally front and center right now about how we approach everything from our hiring to the pace of our arena renovation to how we're dealing with our fans. It permeates everything right now.
If you could describe this year of basketball in one word, what would it be and why?
I'm going to make it more about our own team because that's what I like to focus on, but I would say hopeful, just because we were able to create so much momentum and be such a kind of a bright light in a very dark time that I think it just created a lot of hope for the future for our team and the organization and the community as well.
What motivates you when you wake up every day?
As the leader of a organization like this, my motivation primarily is to make sure that our employees are feeling supported, and that right now, in a very difficult time for a lot of them, that they recognize that we as a company know that they're facing challenging times at home, and that we're there to support them. And at the same time, we all need to realize that as a pro sports team, we have an obligation to our community to provide the best product that we can and to support the community the best way we can. And so getting up every day kind of with those broad missions in mind allows you to focus on some of the more tactical things, because I can tell you right now there's a lot of things to do right now.
What is some advice you would give to a person who hopes to become a president or a CEO of an NBA team?
First and foremost, whatever role you're in, work as hard as you can, be as focused as you can, and make sure that you are setting yourself apart in terms of how you conduct your day-to-day work, because that's what's going to get you noticed, and that's what's going to allow you to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves. I always say part of success is, there's no question, it's timing and luck to some degree, but at the same time, you make your own luck. I truly believe you make your own luck in life, and I'll explain what I mean by that and how I got here. When I was at the law firm, I worked for a partner a senior attorney who was hired by Robert Sarver, who now owns the team, to handle the acquisition of the team for him. So to handle that transaction. I was a junior attorney at the time and had a full workload, had more on my plate than I probably needed to have. But when I learned that that partner had been hired to handle the acquisition, I marched into his office and said, his name is Steve Pigeon. I said, Steve, I know I've got a lot of other work I'm doing for you and other partners, but this is a deal I want to work on. I'll do whatever I need to make it work. And he said, okay, great. Then, you figure it out, but off we go. And we got the deal closed in about a 2-week period. And it was, nights and nights not sleeping, just going 100% for this 2-week period to get this acquisition of the Suns closed. That, in and of itself, that decision is what got me connected with the people inside the Suns. And so when they were looking to hire a in-house attorney a couple of years later, I was one of the people they called to interview for it. So if back in the day I had said to myself, I got too much going on, I have too much other work, I'd love to do that deal, but I'm not going to stress myself out, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because it would not have opened up that door for me. So again, I couldn't control the fact that Steve Pigeon got hired to handle that acquisition. I did control the fact that I inserted myself into the deal and created the opportunity for myself, which turned into where I'm at right now.
And as you mentioned earlier, the Talking Stick Resort Arena has started its $230 million transformation, labeled Project 201 Phoenix Reimagined, in March 2020. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project and what the fans can expect?
What they can expect is for all intents and purposes, a completely transformed and almost a new building, and one that in a lot of ways they won't even recognize compared to what it looked like before. We've gone from a situation of having 3 areas in the arena that have bars and common areas to almost 9. We've increased the size of our center hung scoreboard by 6 times in terms of its size. We've taken our pavilion area and completely redone it with 8,500 square feet of new LED signage and video boards, and a huge bar right in the entryway. We've replaced every seat in the building. We've upgraded our technology, 5G, throughout the entire thing. So it's going to be a completely different experience when people are allowed to come in here. And to be really candid, that's the tough thing about COVID right now, is that we've put in so much time and effort and money to make this building something special. And, it is unfortunate that we're, at least initially, when it's ready to go, we won't be able to have the huge grand opening that we otherwise would have. But we're still confident that when people come back, that they're going to be not just pleasantly surprised, but blown away as to what we've been able to do with this building. And what's great about it as well is, we still were able to maintain most of the exterior that people are kind of view as somewhat iconic for downtown Phoenix. And so there's a bit of that old tradition, but then all the new components that people are really going to be excited about when they see.
So we just heard that Phoenix was awarded Women's Final Four in 2026. How excited are you and the staff about hosting the event at the Talking Stick Resort Arena?
We put a lot of effort working alongside ASU and the city of Phoenix to be awarded that. Our commitment to women's basketball, we also, as you know, own and operate the WNBA Phoenix Mercury. And so that is a significant part of our business as well. And so being able to host a women's Final Four is a great victory for the city, great victory for us as an organization, just to be able to support it and host it here. And again, you look at all the investment here in downtown Phoenix, including the public's money that was put into this building to remodel it. And those are exactly the kind of events that generate the interest and tax revenue for the city of Phoenix that was intended. So it's all around a great win for everybody.
You were named the 2011 Phoenix Father of the Year by the Phoenix Father's Day Council. What did it mean to you to receive such amazing recognition?
It was a great experience. Something that you focus on your professional life, obviously, but far more important than that is focusing on your family. And I'm fortunate enough to have 3 beautiful daughters that range in age from a freshman in high school all the way down to a 20-month-old. So I've got a lot of years left of still raising my girls, but they're obviously, along with my wife, the most important things in my life. So it was a great honor and something that I really appreciated. And one of those things where you, at the same time, there's a lot of great parents out there, whether it's mothers or fathers and fathers. So to be recognized was a nice thing.
What is one thing that you have learned from being a father that helps you in your day-to-day life?
Patience. And patience and the fact that you have three children, and the reality is they're all individuals and they approach things differently, and they act differently, and they have different strengths and different weaknesses, and it also helps me in this business. You got a lot of young people on your staff, and trying to make sure you remain relatable and have a good sense of how different generations approach things and view the world, particularly in today's world. Setting aside COVID, but the pace of how things change, it's so much more rapid than it used to be. That the variations in different age groups, and how you approach them and manage them and interact and work. Having children certainly, I think, helps me approach those things the right way and kind of try and look at things through a different lens.
What is the best advice you have ever been given?
Boy, I've had a lot of good advice, but probably the best is from my dad's given me a ton of good advice over the years. But professionally, I would say that, again, our owner, our managing partner, Robert Sarver, over the years has given me quite a bit. And the one thing he's always said is focus on the basics and the simple things, because ultimately that's kind of what moves the needle. And you can get really caught up in a lot of different things in business, but ultimately it all boils down to kind of focusing on the basics and keeping things simple, because keeping things simple helps you advance and move things in a positive direction. If you get too dispersed on things, you don't accomplish anything. You just kind of spin your wheels.
Who is your favorite athlete of all time and why?
Muhammad Ali is way up there. I really appreciated Muhammad Ali for a lot of different reasons. I'd have to say there's a couple of quarterbacks out there I really, you really saw as strong leaders and people who are really able to move. Diana Taurasi is I'm throwing out more than one because it's hard for me to put my finger on one. Diana Taurasi I look at, and just somebody who has performed at such a high level for such a long time, and also at the same time off the court conducted herself at such a high level and with such high character. I'd put her in my top 5 for sure. But there's a lot of great athletes out there that have done a lot of good things, both on the field or court, and off of it. And I think that's how you need to judge the athletes.
How important do you think it is for athletes to continue to speak out for racial equality?
I think it's extremely important. If you have a platform, and somebody tells you that you shouldn't be permitted to use that platform to advance the things that you believe in, that's just completely misguided. If you are somebody who has a platform that you have worked hard to develop and you've created that platform for yourself, then you've also earned the right to utilize it to advance the things you care about. This idea that, and I understand there are fans and people who, even if they support the social justice movement, they don't like the injection of those topics into sports because they view sports as an escape and something where they don't want topics that can be divisive to be part of that. They prefer that to be elsewhere. I completely understand that and respect that. But the fact is, sports has always had a level of intersection between between whether it's politics or social issues, civil rights movement, whatever it is. There's always been some crossover. So it's not that it's anything new. I think that just right now, with where everything's at in the world, it's taken on a heightened meaning and focus, and I think that's a good thing for people. My sincere hope, though, is that ultimately what it all means is people come together more to have rational and meaningful conversations, but then even more importantly, positive and rational and meaningful outcomes that improve the situation for everybody. Just having people just screaming at each other doesn't really accomplish much at all, in my view.
And then finally, what is one thing that people do not know about you?
I'm a pretty good cook. My wife knows that, but it's not something a lot of people know.
What's your favorite thing to make?
Whether it's either variations of Mexican food or Mexican cuisine or Italian. I make a really mean cioppino, really good cioppino. And I'm to the point now that on certain recipes, and this is where I feel like you actually get to the point where you can feel like you can say, hey, I am a pretty good cook, is when you can make a dish without looking at a recipe, and you can do it without really measuring. You just kind of know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a couple like that I'm happy to make every now and again. So,
how do you feel about Ann Myers-Drysdale, Paul Westphal, and John Bridger, a Thunderbird, being inducted into the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame?
All three individuals, I have connections to them each. Ann Myers-Drysdale, who is our vice president for the Mercury and also one of our broadcasters for both Mercury and Suns games, and just one of the classiest, most terrific people of all time. And some would argue, right against Diana Taurasi, the greatest women's basketball player of all time. You can make arguments either way, but as a representative of our organization, having Annie get that recognition to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, absolutely deserving. She's been just a terrific ambassador for sports, for female and for women's athletics for decades, and just absolutely terrific. Paul Westphal, obviously his history with the Suns organization as a coach and a player, just an individual who epitomizes toughness and has lived and breathed the game of basketball his whole life, and is going through some tough times right now with his health situation, but seeing him inducted as well is something that, again, very deserved, and we're very proud of that recognition. And then John Bridger, who just recently stepped down as the executive director for the Thunderbirds, which is the Thunderbirds is the host committee and charitable organization that runs the Phoenix Open, or the Waste Management Phoenix Open, among other activities. But John, for years, as the executive director, guided the Thunderbird organization and the Open to grow into the largest golfing event in the world in terms of attendance, and doing it with a level of humility and professionalism that I would say is unmatched in the golfing industry. And he's certainly been recognized by the golfing industry for his accomplishments, and I think it's fitting also that he's been recognized by Arizona and our state as well, being inducted into our Hall of Fame. Very deserving, and just all around, all three individuals, just terrific people. And if you talk about people who are inspiring, all three of those would certainly fall into that category.
Thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Rowley, and thank you for joining us here at ASEC Conversations. We'll see you next time.